The battlefield was silent now. The great war between humans and alien beasts had ended hours ago, but the air still carried the smell of fire and blood. Smoke rose in thin columns from broken machines, and the ground was covered with pieces of metal, ash, and shattered weapons. The sky above was gray, heavy with clouds, as if even the heavens had watched the fighting and turned cold. A single human moved slowly across the ruins. He was a medic dressed in torn armor, his uniform marked with stains of dust and blood. His name was Daniel, but on the field, no one cared about names. He carried a small pack of supplies on his back and a scanner in his hand. His job was not to fight. His job was to search, to listen, and to heal anyone who could still be saved. Each step was heavy. His body hurt, but he kept walking. He had seen too many soldiers fall, too many friends who would never return home. Still, he forced himself forward. He could not rest, not while there might be survivors hidden under wreckage or smoke. The battlefield was quiet, yet in that quiet Daniel heard something. At first it was faint, so faint that he thought it was only the ringing in his ears. But then it came again, a sound carried through the broken air. It was not the groan of metal. It was not the wind. It was a cry. Daniel stopped. His heart beat faster. The sound was weak, almost broken, but it was clear. Something alive was out there, and it was calling. He turned his head, listening carefully. The cry came again, a sharp but fragile voice in silence. It sounded like no human voice. It was smaller, higher, almost like a young creature in pain. Cautious, Daniel moved toward it. His boots crunched over broken glass and stone. He passed the burned remains of a tank, the dark marks of energy blasts, the cold forms of soldiers who had fought until their last breath. But the sound kept guiding him. It pulled him forward like a thread of hope and fear mixed together. Finally, he reached a pile of wreckage where smoke still rose. The cry was louder here. He crouched, brushing aside the pieces of bent metal. The cry came again, trembling and weak. Daniel's breath caught in his throat. Beneath the twisted steel and shattered panels, he saw movement. Small, shaky, desperate. He reached in, pulling the wreckage aside. And then he saw it. His eyes widened. It was not human. It was a cub, a war beast cub. The creature's small body was covered in dark fur, matted with blood and dust. Its eyes glowed faintly, a pale color that shimmered like light on water. Its chest rose and fell in quick, weak gasps, and one leg was bent at a strange angle. It was trapped, pinned under a heavy piece of metal. For a moment, Daniel froze. His heart pounded hard in his chest. Everyone in the galaxy knew the war beasts. They were monsters of the battlefield, taller than tanks, faster than soldiers, and feared by all. A single war beast could tear apart a squad in seconds. Their claws ripped armor, and their roars sent whole armies running. And this small, crying creature in front of him was one of their young. Daniel's hands shook. His mind screamed at him to back away, to leave it, to run. The war beast would never forgive a human who touched their cub. If the mother was near, he would be dead before he could take another step. But then the cub whimpered again. A weak, broken sound, filled with pain. Daniel felt something stir inside him. It was not fear now. It was not hate. It was something else. This was just a child caught in the ruins of war, crying out for help. Slowly, Daniel reached forward. He pressed his hands against the metal pinning the cub. His muscles strained as he pushed. The wreckage groaned but did not move. The cub cried again, softer now, almost fading. "No," Daniel whispered. "Stay alive. I'm here." He pushed harder, sweat running down his face, his body screaming in pain. At last, with a sharp crack, the piece of metal shifted, then rolled aside. The cub was free. It tried to move but collapsed with a whimper. Daniel knelt quickly, his medic's instincts taking control. He opened his pack, pulling out bandages and a small vial of medicine. The cub looked at him with glowing eyes. It did not growl. It did not bite. It only breathed fast and shallow, too weak to resist. Daniel worked quickly, wrapping the wounds, cleaning the blood, giving the creature a small dose of medicine meant for soldiers. His hands moved with care, though his heart still raced. When he was done, the cub let out a soft sound. Not a cry of pain now, but something else. A sound of relief, maybe even trust. Daniel sat back, breathing hard. His mind raced with fear. What if the mother came? What if the war beasts found him here, holding their cub? But deep inside, another thought burned stronger. He could not have walked away. He could not have left it. The battlefield was full of death, but here, in his hands, was life. And Daniel knew he would protect it, no matter what came next. The cub's breathing was shallow, but it was alive. Daniel sat on the broken ground, staring at the small creature. His hands were red with its blood. His heart was loud in his chest, beating so hard that it hurt. He knew the truth. Saving this cub was not only dangerous, it was madness. The war beasts were not forgiving. They were not like humans, who sometimes spared enemies. The war beasts followed one law. No one touched their young and lived. Daniel looked at the cub again. Its glowing eyes blinked slowly, weak but watching him. The little body trembled with pain. It was helpless. Without him, it would die. He swallowed hard, his throat dry. "What am I doing?" he whispered to himself. "If its mother finds me, I'm finished." The thought made his whole body tense. He had seen what war beasts could do. Once, during the battle, he had watched one tear through a human armored unit like it was made of paper. Soldiers had screamed, weapons had fired. But nothing had stopped it until a heavy strike from the sky finally killed the beast. The memory still haunted him. And now here he was, holding one of their cubs. He could leave it. He could stand up, walk away, and no one would know. If the cub died, no one could blame him. After all, it was the enemy's child. But when he tried to imagine walking away, he couldn't. His legs would not move. His hands would not let go. The cub let out a small, broken whine. Daniel felt his chest tighten. "You don't know what you're asking," he muttered, though the cub could not understand. "You don't know what this means for me." Still, his hands reached for more bandages. His training took control again. He cleaned another wound, wrapped it tight. He whispered soft words, even though the cub could not know them. His voice was calm, steady, the same voice he used with wounded soldiers. Minutes passed. The battlefield around him was silent, but Daniel's mind was loud with fear. At any moment, he expected to hear heavy steps, to feel the ground shake, to hear the roar of the mother. If that happened, no words, no action would save him. He thought of his own family far away on Earth. His sister, his little nephew who liked to run in the fields, free and safe. What would they think if they saw him now, risking his life for the child of a monster? Perhaps they would call him foolish. Perhaps they would call him brave. He did not know. All he knew was this. He was a medic. He had sworn to save life, not only human life, but any life he could. He remembered the oath he had repeated during his training, to heal where others destroy, to protect where others harm. His fingers pressed against the cub's chest, feeling the heartbeat. Weak but steady, a fragile rhythm in the ruins of war. The cub blinked again, and this time, instead of fear, Daniel thought he saw something else. A spark, small but real. Maybe it was trust. Maybe it was only the fading glow of its eyes. But it was enough. Daniel sat back and let out a long breath. "All right," he whispered. "I've made my choice." The choice that could kill him. He adjusted the bandages, lifted the cub gently into his arms, and rose to his feet. Its body was light, lighter than it expected, but still warm against his chest. He could feel each shallow breath. The battlefield stretched out before him, wide and broken. Somewhere out there, survivors might still be hiding, but he could not leave the cub behind. He looked at the horizon, smoke and shadow mixing together. Every ruined wall, every shattered machine, looked like a place where danger could hide. His ears strained for sounds, the cry of soldiers, the growl of beasts, the hum of machines, but the world was still. "Come on," he said softly to the cub. "Let's get you out of here." The cub made a faint sound, not loud, not angry, only tired. Daniel held it closer. Step by step, he moved across the ruins. Each footstep echoed in his ears. Each shadow seemed to move. His mind whispered warnings. The mother will come. She will smell you. She will rip you apart. But his arms did not let go. His steps did not stop. The cub had no one else. And so Daniel chose to be its protector. He did not know where the path would lead. He did not know if he would live through the next hour. But he had made his choice, and there was no turning back. The battlefield groaned as the wind pushed through broken walls. Far away, a sound echoed, low, distant, but growing. Daniel froze. It was no human voice. It was deep, it was heavy, and it was coming closer. He tightened his grip on the cub. His heart raced again, faster than before. The air seemed to thicken, hard to breathe. He knew that sound. The hunter was near. The cry of the cub had gone quiet now, but Daniel knew that silence was not safety. He could still hear that sound in the distance, the heavy call, deep and fierce. The mother was close. The cub lay weak in his arms. Its fur was damp with blood and dirt. Its body shivered against him. Daniel looked down at it and felt his fear mix with something else. The creature was small, helpless, and dying. Without help, it had no chance. He opened his medical pack again, though he knew it was almost empty. His hands moved fast, trained by years of practice. He checked the cub's wounds. Cuts on its side, broken ribs, maybe a leg bent wrong. His eyes narrowed. A human soldier would not live long with such damage. Daniel pulled out his last injector, the one he'd been saving in case he found a wounded comrade. He stared at it for a moment. This was his final dose of strong medicine. Once he gave it, there would be none left. He looked at the cub. Its breathing was faint, almost lost. Daniel pressed the injector against its neck. "Don't make me regret this," he whispered. Then he pushed the trigger. The medicine hissed into the cub's body. For a few seconds, nothing happened. Then the small creature let out a sharp breath, as if waking from drowning. Its glowing eyes opened wider, clearer than before. It was still weak, but a spark of strength had returned. Daniel let out a slow breath, relief mixed with dread. He had just given up his last hope for saving a human life, and he had given it to the child of an enemy. He set the injector aside and worked on bandaging the cub's side again. His fingers were quick but gentle. The cub whimpered, but it did not fight him. It leaned against his arm, trusting him now, even if only because it had no other choice. "You're tougher than you look," Daniel said softly, "but you're not safe yet." He scanned the horizon. The battlefield stretched in every direction. Ruins, smoke, broken machines, silent corpses. And somewhere out there, the mother was moving closer. Daniel stood, holding the cub tight to his chest. He needed to find shelter, a place to hide until the danger passed. But where? The battlefield was open, too open. Any wrong step, and he would be seen. He started walking, careful and quick. His boots crunched over ash and stone. Every sound made him flinch. Every shadow looked like claws waiting to strike. Minutes passed. The cub grew heavier in his arms, though he knew it was only his own strength fading. His body ached, but he did not stop. He had chosen this path. There was no turning back. A sudden roar shook the air. Daniel froze. His blood turned cold. The sound was closer now, much closer. The mother was hunting. He pressed his back against a broken wall, holding the cub tight. He could feel its heart racing against his chest. The ground trembled. Dust fell from the broken stone above him. Daniel did not dare to breathe. Through the smoke, he saw movement, a massive shape blurred by the haze. The creature's head lifted high, sniffing the air. Its glowing eyes scanned the ruins, searching. Daniel pressed himself flatter against the wall, praying that the smoke would hide him. His mind screamed, "She will smell the cub. She will smell me. We're finished." The cub made a soft sound, weak but sharp in the silence. Daniel's hand covered its mouth gently, trying to quiet it. His heart hammered, so hard he thought the beast could hear it. The war beast sniffed again, growled, and moved past. The ground shook with each step until the sound faded into the distance. Daniel let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. His body trembled, but he did not stop moving. He knew now he could not wait for safety. He had to act fast. The cub's wounds were deep. If he did not find real shelter, the creature would still die, and his risk would mean nothing. He pushed forward, scanning the ruins for any sign of cover. At last, he saw a collapsed bunker half buried in dirt. It was small, dark, and broken, but it was better than nothing. He hurried inside. The air was stale, but was hidden from the open battlefield. He laid the cub down on a patch of dry ground and opened his pack again. He had little left. A few strips of bandage, one packet of water, and tools stained from too many battles. But he worked with what he had. He cleaned the wounds again, set the broken leg as best he could, and wrapped it tight. The cub whimpered, its glowing eyes fixed on him. Daniel kept his voice steady, calming. "Stay with me. You're going to make it. You have to." Hours seemed to pass in minutes. The bunker shook now and then as distant footsteps echoed outside. But Daniel stayed focused, working with care and speed. At last, the cub's breathing grew stronger. Its body no longer shook with every breath. The medicine was helping. The bandages were holding. Daniel sat back, exhausted. His hands were sore, his body weak, but his heart felt lighter. He had kept the cub alive. For now, he leaned against the wall, holding his rifle close, though he knew it was useless against the mother. His eyes closed for a moment, but he did not sleep. He could not. Outside, the hunt continued. The mother's roar rolled through the smoke, closer again, a reminder of what was coming. Daniel looked at the cub, resting now, and whispered, "We're not safe yet, not even close, but I'll get you through this. Somehow." The cub let out a soft, tired sound, almost like an answer, and Daniel knew the race against death had only just begun. The bunker was small and broken, but it gave Daniel a place to breathe. The cub lay on a patch of ground beside him, wrapped in bandages, its chest rising and falling in steady rhythm now. For the first time since he had found it, Daniel allowed himself to feel hope. But hope lasted only moments on a battlefield. The ground began to tremble again. A low rumble rolled through the earth, dust falling from the bunker's cracked ceiling. Daniel froze. He had felt this before. It was not distant artillery. It was not collapsing stone. It was footsteps. Heavy, slow, and full of power. Daniel's pulse quickened. He leaned close to the cub, whispering, "Quiet. Stay quiet," as if the child of a war beast could understand. The cub stirred, its glowing eyes opening halfway. It let out a soft whimper, weak but sharp enough to echo in the tight bunker. Daniel covered its mouth gently, heart hammering. His body screamed for silence. The roar came next, a deep, shaking cry that rolled across the ruins like thunder. The sound carried anger, pain, and command all at once. It was a kind of roar that stopped soldiers mid-step and froze armies in their tracks. The mother had arrived. Daniel presses back to the wall, rifle tight in his hands, though he knew the weapon was useless. No human rifle could bring down a war beast in time. He had seen him take shot after shot and still charge forward. If she found him, his life would end in seconds. The footsteps grew louder. The bunker shook. Dust fell in thick streams now, coating Daniel's hair and uniform. He held his breath, listening. Then silence. The world outside was still, too still. Daniel knew what that meant. The mother was sniffing, searching. She was close enough to smell the blood, close enough to sense life inside the broken bunker. His throat was dry. His body begged him to run, but there was nowhere to go. The bunker had only one entrance, and it opened right toward the battlefield. If he left, he would be seen. If he stayed, he would be trapped. The cub stirred again. Its weak body shifted, and it let out a small cry. Daniel's eyes widened. He whispered sharply, "No, not now." He pressed the cub close against his chest, trying to muffle the sound. His own heartbeat thundered so loud, he feared it could be heard outside. The shadow fell across the bunker's entrance. Through the smoke and light, Daniel saw her, the war beast mother. She was enormous, larger than he had imagined. Her fur was dark as night, glowing streaks along her body pulsing with energy. Her eyes were fire, glowing red-orange, scanning the ruins with rage. Each claw was longer than Daniel's arm. Her teeth glistened as her breath came in heavy gusts that stirred the smoke around her. Daniel could not move. His body was locked between terror and disbelief. He had seen war beasts before, but never this close, never alive, never with her fury burning into the air. She lowered her head, sniffing. The sound was like a storm pulling in air. Her eyes narrowed. She was looking straight at the bunker. Daniel's fingers tightened on the rifle, though he knew it would not save him. His other hand pressed the cub against him, as if holding it tighter could shield it from the danger outside. The mother stepped closer. The ground shook with each move. Stones rolled from the bunker's roof, clattering to the floor. The cub whimpered again, too weak to be silent any longer. The mother roared, a roar so loud that Daniel's ears rang, so powerful that the bunker walls quivered. He almost dropped the cub in shock. She knew her child was inside. Daniel's breath came in short gasps. His mind screamed with choices, run, fight, hide, but none seemed real. He could not outrun her. He could not outfight her. There was only one thing left. Slowly, shaking, Daniel stepped into the open. The cub was still in his arms, its body limp against him. The smoke curled around his figure as he stood in the broken light. His knees felt weak, but his back stayed straight. The mother saw him. Her eyes locked on him with fury. Her teeth bared, claws digging into the ground. Her roar shook the air again, a warning, a promise of death. Daniel raised his hand slowly, showing he held no weapon. He lifted the cub higher so she could see. His voice shook, but he forced himself to speak. "I saved your child," he said. "I didn't harm it. Look, it's alive." The war beast's eyes flicked at the cub. She sniffed again, her head lowering, closer now. Daniel's whole body trembled. He was one breath away from being torn apart. The cub let out a faint cry, not of pain, but of recognition. It reached one paw weakly toward its mother. The war beast froze. Her eyes narrowed. She sniffed once more, longer this time, taking in the scent of her cub, the blood, and the human holding it. Daniel's heart stopped. This was the moment. His life balanced on the edge of a single choice, not his own, but hers. For a long time, nothing moved. The air was heavy, thick, crushing him. Then, slowly, the mother lowered her head until her snout almost touched the cub. She made a low sound, not a roar, not a growl, but something softer, almost gentle. The cub answered with a weak cry. Daniel stood frozen, not daring to breathe. He had given everything to keep the cub alive. Now, his fate rested in the hands or claws of its mother. The hunter had found him. The question was simple. Would she kill him or spare him? The air was thick with smoke, dust, and fear. Daniel stood frozen at the entrance of the bunker, holding the cub tightly in his arms. The war beast mother loomed before him, her massive body towering above the ruins. Her glowing eyes locked onto him with fire and fury. Every breath she took shook the ground. Every growl rolled like thunder across the battlefield. Daniel's legs trembled, but he did not run. He couldn't. There was nowhere to run. He knew that if she wanted, she could crush him in a heartbeat. The rifle strapped to his back was useless. He might as well have been holding a stick. All he had was the cub. The tiny creature shifted weakly in his arms. Its glowing eyes blinked at the mother, its small paw lifting, as if it wanted to reach for her. The sound that left his throat was faint but full of need, soft, broken, but calling. The war beast mother leaned closer. Her massive head lowered until her snout was almost touching Daniel. Her breath was hot and heavy, carrying the metallic scent of blood. Her teeth glistened in the haze, sharp enough to cut through stone. Daniel's heart pounded so loud he thought it would burst from his chest. He forced his voice out, shaky but steady enough to carry through the smoke. "I saved your child," he said. His throat was dry. His lips barely moved. "I didn't harm it. Look, it's alive." The mother's eyes narrowed. She sniffed the cub, then him. Her growl deepened, a sound that seemed to vibrate through his bones. Daniel lifted the cub higher, carefully, showing her its bandaged body. "It was trapped," he continued, each word tasting like ash. "It would have died if I had walked away." The war beast's eyes flicked from him to her child. She sniffed again, longer this time, and the sound was sharp, searching. Daniel knew she was reading the truth in scents: blood, medicine, sweat, fear. The cub whimpered, and for a moment, the battlefield seemed to hold its breath. Daniel whispered, almost pleading now, "I gave it everything I had. My medicine, my strength. His voice cracked. I chose to keep it alive." The mother's head moved closer still, so close that Daniel could feel the heat of her breath on his face. His knees nearly gave out. He stared into her burning eyes and thought, this is it. This is the end. But then something unexpected happened. The war beast lowered her voice to a deep rumble. Not a roar, not rage, but something quieter, almost a call. Her snout brushed against the cub gently. The child answered with a faint sound, weak but clear, as if it recognized her touch. Daniel stood frozen, hardly daring to believe. She was not striking. She was not killing. She was checking. Her massive eyes shifted back to him, glowing fiercely. Daniel did not look away. His whole body screamed at him to bow, to hide, to break. But he forced himself to meet her gaze. "Take your child," he said softly, though fear rattled in his voice. "I kept it alive for you. I asked nothing in return." The war beast growled low, a sound like a warning but not yet a death sentence. Her claw moved slightly, scraping the ground near his feet. One wrong step, and she could end him. Daniel hesitated, then slowly bent down. His arms shook as he lowered the cub to the ground. The little creature whimpered once, then reached its paw toward its mother. The great beast stepped forward. Her shadow swallowed him whole as she leaned down and touched the cub with her snout again. A low sound left her throat, one Daniel had never heard before from her kind. It was not rage. It was not hunger. It was tenderness. The cub cried softly, curling against her massive claw. Daniel stepped back slowly, his hands raised to show he was unarmed. He expected her to turn on him the moment her cub was safe. His mind ran through his final thoughts, his family, his oath as a medic, the choice he had made. He told himself he would not regret it, even if this was his last moment. But then the impossible happened. The war beast looked at him. Her growl deepened, but it was not fury. It was something else, a sound he could not name, somewhere between warning and recognition. She lowered her head until her glowing eyes were level with his. For a heartbeat, human and beast stared into each other, their breaths mixing in the smoke. Daniel's fear was still there, but something shifted. In her gaze, he saw not only rage but also thought, a wild primal intelligence. She knew what he had done. She understood. The war beast stepped back slightly, her massive body rising again. She wrapped one claw gently around the cub, lifting it close to her chest. The child whimpered once more but nestled against her, safe now in the arms of its mother. Daniel braced himself. Now she'll kill me, he thought. Now that her child is safe, she'll erase the threat. But the strike never came. The mother roared loud and fierce, but the sound rolled past him instead of at him. It was not a roar of anger. It was a declaration, a message to the battlefield. Her cub was alive, and she had found it. Daniel stood there, stunned, unable to move. He could not understand why she had spared him. Perhaps she saw him as too weak to matter. Perhaps she saw no honor in killing an unarmed medic. Or perhaps, just perhaps, she respected the choice he had made. The war beast turned slowly, her massive form moving through the smoke. Each step shook the earth, each movement a reminder of her strength. She carried her cub with care, her eyes glowing in the dark. Daniel lowered his arms, his body trembling with relief and exhaustion. His knees buckled, and he dropped to the ground, gasping for air. His hands shook uncontrollably. He had faced death head-on, and somehow still lived. For a long time, he sat there, staring at the ruins where she had vanished. The silence of the battlefield returned, but it was a different silence now. Not the silence of death, but the silence after something sacred had passed. Daniel whispered to himself, "She let me live." The words sounded unreal, as if he were dreaming. He touched the ground where the cub had lain, the bandages still marked with his hands. He thought of the small eyes looking at him, the paw reaching out, the sound it had made when its mother arrived. In that moment, he understood. Life had been the true weapon he carried. Not his rifle, not his armor, but his choice to heal instead of kill. The war had taught him many things, most of them dark. But here, on a battlefield full of death, he had learned something new. Even the fiercest enemy could see the truth when life was protected. Daniel rose slowly, his body aching but his spirit lighter. He had no idea what stories would spread, what the war beast would think, or if this moment would ever matter beyond himself. But to him, it mattered more than any victory. He had faced the impossible and chosen to save instead of destroy. And the mother, in return, had chosen not to kill. The moment of truth had come, and it had passed with life, not death. Daniel walked back into the ruins, each step heavy, but full of quiet strength. He knew the war was not over. He knew more battles would come. But he also knew this. Somewhere out there, a war beast carried her cub alive because of him. And maybe, just maybe, that meant something greater than any battle won. The battlefield was quiet again, but it was not peace. The quiet was heavy, like a blanket of smoke that would not lift. Daniel sat among the ruins, his body drained, his mind trying to understand what had just happened. The war beast mother had spared him. She had walked away, her cub alive in her arms. By all logic, he should have been dead. By all history, no human should have lived after standing so close to a war beast in rage. Yet here he was, breathing, shaking, alive. Daniel thought of her eyes. Fierce, glowing, full of danger, but also full of thought. She had seen him, not as prey, not as an enemy, but as something else, something that had protected her cub. He pressed a hand against his chest, feeling his heartbeat slow. He knew that this moment, this strange bond, was not over. Something had been forged in that meeting, something neither human nor war beast would easily forget. Hours later, Daniel stumbled back toward the human camp. His body was weak, his uniform torn, his face pale from exhaustion. Soldiers stopped and stared as he walked through the gates. They had thought he was dead. Many had seen the war beast pass through the battlefield. None expected to see him return. "Medic Daniels," one of the officers shouted. "How did you—" Daniel raised a hand, cutting him off. "The cub," he said simply. His voice was rough, his throat raw. "I saved her cub." The soldiers exchanged looks, unsure whether he was speaking madness or truth. "You what?" a commander asked, his tone sharp. Daniel told them everything. The cry in the ruins, the hours of work to save the little one, the moment when the mother arrived. His words were simple, but the story carried a weight that silenced everyone who listened. When he finished, the camp buzzed with disbelief. Some called him insane. Others whispered that the war beast might now see humans differently. A few muttered that he should have let the cub die, that saving it had been foolish, even dangerous. Daniel ignored them all. He knew what he had done, and he knew why. 2 nights later, the ground shook again. The alarm bells rang across the human camp. Soldiers rushed to their posts, weapons raised, hearts pounding. They expected another attack. But what came was not an army. A single war beast approached, massive and unarmed. Its fur was dark, its eyes glowing like fire. It carried something in its claw, not a weapon, but a banner made from scorched metal. The human soldiers aimed their rifles, ready to fire, but Daniel stepped forward, his stomach twisting. He recognized the metal banner. It was a sign of parley, a symbol older than this war, older than many wars. A sign that said, "We come to speak, not to fight." The war beast stopped just beyond the walls, lowering its claw. The banner clanged against the ground. Then the creature's voice rolled across the field, deep and powerful. "Human, the one who saved the cub, come forward." Gasps spread through the soldiers. Eyes turned toward Daniel. He felt every stare, every weight of expectation. The commander hissed. This could be a trap. "Maybe," Daniel said. His throat was dry, but he forced the words out. "But if it's not, then this is the moment. This is what matters." Before anyone could stop him, Daniel stepped out from the camp. The night air was sharp, the ground cold beneath his boots. Daniel walked slowly toward the war beast. Every step was a risk. Every breath felt heavy. The beast lowered its head as he approached, studying him. "You are the one," it rumbled. "The mother told us." She carried the cub back, alive. She told us of the human who gave his strength, who did not run, who faced her rage and was not crushed. Daniel swallowed. "I only did what I swore to do. I heal. That is my duty." The war beast growled softly, not in anger but in thought. "Your kind kills. Our kind kills. That is the law of war. But you broke that law." Daniel clenched his fists. War isn't the only law. Life matters, even in war. For a moment, silence stretched. Then the beast spoke again. "The mother says you are not enemy. She says you are bond blood now. Do you know what this means, human?" Daniel shook his head slowly. "It means that by her law, by our law, you are marked. You save what is hers. Now you are part of her debt. No war beast may harm you without shaming her blood. You are bound to her, forever." Daniel's breath caught. Bound to her? Protected by her? It sounded impossible. The war beast leaned closer, its glowing eyes burning into him. "Remember this, human. You are still weak, but weakness does not erase bond. The cub lives because of you. The mother remembers. We all will remember. Then, without another word, the beast lifted the banner again, turned, and walked back into the darkness. When Daniel returned, the camp erupted in argument. Some soldiers were furious. "You've given them a reason to see us as soft," one shouted. Others were more cautious. "No," another said. "Don't you see? They've recognized him. They've recognized what he did. That could change everything." The commander paced in silence, then finally spoke. "Medic Daniels, you may have done something no weapon could. You may have opened a door." Daniel did not answer. His mind was heavy with the words of the war beast. Bond blood, forever. Later that night, Daniel sat alone outside the camp. The stars were faint through the haze of smoke. His body ached, but his heart was restless. He thought of the cub's small paw reaching for him, the way it had nestled against his mother. He thought of the mother's eyes, fierce yet sparing. He thought of the words, bond blood. "What does that make me now?" he whispered. "A soldier? A medic? Or something else entirely?" For the first time in a long while, Daniel felt the war was no longer just about killing or surviving. Something larger was moving now, something neither side could fully control. He touched the ground, as if he could still feel the weight of the cub in his arms. The memory filled him with both fear and hope. Somewhere out there, a war beast mother carried her child alive. Somewhere out there, she remembered him not as an enemy, but as something close akin. And that bond, fragile and strange, might be enough to change everything. As Daniel rose to return to camp, he froze. In the shadows beyond the walls, he saw movement, a figure massive but silent, watching him. For a moment, he thought it was an enemy. His breath caught. But then, the figure stepped into faint moonlight. It was her, the war beast mother. She did not come closer. She only stood there, her cub nestled safely in her claw. Her glowing eyes fixed on him for a long moment. Daniel's chest tightened. He raised a hand slowly, not in fear, but in quiet greeting. The mother gave a low rumble, almost like the sound of distant thunder. Then she turned and vanished into the night. Daniel stood there, heart racing, but strangely calm. He understood now. The bond was real. The war might still rage, but between him and her, something had been built that no weapon could destroy. The war dragged on. Battles still burned across broken worlds, and soldiers from both sides continued to fall. Yet something had shifted in the silence between battles. Daniel felt it in the way the soldiers looked at him. He felt it in the way his commanders spoke to him, careful, measured, as if he carried something they could not name. But the change was strongest in his own heart. He no longer felt the war as he once had. He had walked through death and met life instead. He had seen rage bend to mercy. That memory stayed with him through every moment, as close as his own shadow. One night, weeks after the meeting, Daniel was sent to another front. The fighting there was brutal. Trenches filled with mud and smoke. Cries of the wounded echoing through the dark. He worked without pause, his hands stained with blood, human and alien alike. The oath he had sworn, to heal, not to destroy, remained his only weapon. As he worked, rumors followed him. Stories whispered in the trenches, told in disbelief. They called him the one who had faced the war beast and lived, the one who had touched the cub and been spared. Some called him mad, others a liar, but some believed. Some even began to hope that if such a thing were possible, maybe other impossible things could happen too. The enemy whispered as well. Scouts brought back fragments of talk from across the lines. They spoke of a human medic whose name was being carried among the war beasts. A human marked by bond blood. A human that their kind could not strike without shame. It was impossible, they said, but still The story spread. Daniel did not speak of it. He carried the memory quietly like a secret flame. But he could not deny that the story was larger than him now. The moment came when he saw her again. It was not in a camp, not in a parley, but in battle. The fight had torn through the ruins of a shattered city. Flames climbed broken towers, smoke turned the sky black, and both sides clashed in the streets. Daniel had been pulling a wounded soldier from the rubble when he felt the ground tremble. He looked up, and his heart froze. The war beast mother was there. Her massive body moved through the wreckage with deadly grace, her claws slicing through steel, her roar shaking the air. Human soldiers panicked at the sight, some firing wildly, others retreating. Daniel expected her to crush everything in her path, but then he saw what she carried. In the shadow of her great form, clinging to her fur, was the cub, not so small anymore, but still young, still clumsy in its steps. Its glowing eyes blinked through the smoke, its cries piercing the chaos. For one frozen instant, Daniel and the cub locked eyes. Recognition flared. The young creature tilted its head, a sound leaving its throat that cut through the noise of battle, a sound that reached for him. The mother heard it. Her massive head turned, her burning eyes falling on Daniel. The soldiers around him screamed for him to fall back, to run. But he did not. He stood there, chest heaving, hands raised, not in defiance but in trust. The mother moved closer, her shadow swallowing him again. Soldiers lifted their rifles, commanders shouted orders, but Daniel shouted louder. "Hold your fire. Hold it." His voice cracked with urgency, but something in it carried power. Perhaps it was the madness of the moment. Perhaps it was the bond itself. The war beast mother stopped a breath away. The cub let out a cry, stretching toward him with a paw. Daniel swallowed hard, his throat dry. He had no words this time, no explanation, only the memory of what had passed between them. And then, before every eye on that burning street, the impossible happened again. The mother lowered her head. The cub climbed down carefully, its paws slipping on stone, until it stood before Daniel. Its eyes glowed faintly, its body still scarred where his bandages had once been. It sniffed the air, then brushed against his leg. A sound, soft and low, left its throat. The soldiers around him gasped. The battle seemed to freeze. Even the enemy stopped firing, staring in disbelief. The cub, child of their fiercest enemy, was touching a human as if it knew him, as if it trusted him. Daniel bent down slowly, his hands trembling. He touched the cub's fur, warm and alive beneath his fingers. For a heartbeat, the chaos of war fell silent. There was only him, the cub, and the bond that refused to die. The mother gave a deep rumble, not of anger but of warning to all who watched. Then, with care, she lifted the cub again. Her eyes met Daniel's, burning, fierce, unbroken. But within that fire was recognition, the same as before. Then she turned, carrying her child, and vanished back into the smoke. The silence shattered. Soldiers shouted. Commanders argued. The battle struggled to resume. But something had changed, and everyone knew it. The sight of that cub touching a human had burned itself into every mind. From that day on, the story could no longer be dismissed as rumor. It spread like fire across both armies. They called him many names. The bonded one, the medic of mercy, the human who touched the cub. Each name carried weight. Each name carried fear, respect, or hope. Daniel himself remained quiet. He did not seek glory, did not claim titles. He kept working, kept healing, kept walking the line between death and life. But he knew the truth. The bond was real. He had not just saved a cub. He had planted a seed that no weapon could kill. Weeks later, messages began to move through channels both human and alien. Unofficial, secret at first, then louder, calls for talks, not attacks. Whispers of truce, born not from strength, but from something stranger, respect. And always at the center of those whispers was the story of the medic and the cub. Daniel stood on the edge of the war one night, looking out over the broken land. He thought of the faces he had saved, the lives he could not, the cub's paw reaching for him, the mother's eyes sparing him twice. He did not know what future would come. Perhaps peace, perhaps only more battles. But he knew this. He had been part of something larger than war. He had been part of a moment where mercy broke through rage, where life rose above death. That was the legacy of the cub, a bond forged in blood and fear, but carried forward in hope. Daniel whispered into the night, not sure if the stars or the shadows would hear. Live well, little one. Grow strong. Remember that once, in the middle of war, we chose life. And somewhere beyond the horizon, in the dark lands where war beasts roamed, a young cub looked up at the same sky, its glowing eyes full of memory.